Hi, this is Mark News from Plant Talk Radio. Thanks for subscribing and listening to our podcast, Your Gardening Questions from Plant Talk Radio. To keep this podcast free, we're partnering with Stoke Seeds. Indoor seed starting is fun, easy, and economical, and now's the time to start your seeds. If you're looking to grow a vegetable variety or add a punch of color to your flower garden, review the Stoke Seed Starting Guide online. You'll find information about soil preparation, moisture, temperature, light, transplanting, and more. The Stoke Seeds website is a complete resource center that you need to make your garden the envy of the neighborhood. Get growing with Stokes. We'll have more to come from Stoke Seeds in the next few weeks. Now, for today's question. We had an email question this week from Austin, who said, I would like to know how to train a wisteria to grow along a wood picket fence. How should it be pruned and secured?
Well, wisteria are typically pretty aggressive, so, as the plant is growing, you can trim off what is not growing where you want it to. If you're wanting to attach that to the picket fence, you can use different things. One that comes to mind are zip ties. Those do a nice job and will last if you get the ones that have the UV inhibitors in them. The black ones typically will last for a longer period of time. And then you can also get some device that will attach to the wood and allow the wisteria stem to grow through it, almost like a conduit clamp or something metal like that. The wisteria is very aggressive, so, that's something that, every 2 or 3 weeks you may be wanting to trim it a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Now, you told me an interesting story about you and wisteria.
Oh, yes.
Talk a little bit about that, and I think there's a real lesson there.
Very young in my career, I built a large cedar arbor, and I was always fascinated with the wisteria flowers because they're so beautiful. And I planted some wisteria, and they aggressively grew up and covered the cedar arbor that I put in. But lo and behold, every year I would not get flowers. And so I started talking to a number of other nurserymen, and, some suggested that I do some root pruning. Some said I should trim out some of the wisteria vine. And over the years, I just every year fussed with this wisteria and got no flowers until I ran into an old nurseryman, and he said, well, what kind do you have? And I said, well, I don't know. It's a purple one. And that's what the tag said.
Yeah.
And he said, well, there are really a couple different kinds. He said there are ones that come up from seed. And he said, don't look for any flowers on those.
Oh.
And he said the ones you want are the grafted varieties that create the nice lush flowers on the stems. So anyway, I ended up ripping out the wisteria over the next 3 years.
Yeah.
And every time I'd rip it out, it'd come back, and I'd have to rip it out again. So wisteria is a very aggressive plant. In the right place, it's beautiful. I've seen some of them trained to grow up a supporting rod or stem. And I know of some here in town that have been trimmed out, and they look like pagoda trees. And when they bloom, they're just spectacular.
So I guess when you go to buy a wisteria, how can you tell which variety it is?
They'll be marked on the tags, and as far as I know, most of them are grafted varieties now.
Yeah.
And so, if you go to a good garden center, they'll only handle the good grafted varieties, so you can get the purples or the pinks or the whites and have good color from them.
I think Fred has an entire roof over his patio that's nothing but wisteria, if I recall.
He does, and it keeps him busy with his coffee and pruners in the morning.
Yeah, that's right. We have one of our listeners, I think he's in Bucyrus, who has his entire porch completely covered. The sides of it they're like walls of wisteria, and you talk about flowers. It is. He sent us a picture last year. It was absolutely beautiful.
Right. Well, in some of the stores that we've had over the years, I remember one in particular that we had wisteria that grew over the entrance, and about every other year we would have to go in and aggressively prune it because it was so dense that it would almost be dark walking down the aisle to the entrance to the store. So, keep in mind it's a beautiful plant, but really think about the area that you want to put it in, because it can have some very strong stems that'll twist wood, and I've seen them do some pretty aggressive things. So
be ready to prune.
Yes.
And as you mentioned, when you got rid of yours, you had to get the chainsaw out, right?
Yeah. Well, you know how they say that you can hear corn grow?
Yeah.
Well, you can hear wisteria grow, too.
There you go. Hey, thanks again for listening to the podcast. Remember, lose the winter blues and garden indoors. Start your indoor seeds with the help of Stokes Gardening Guide and their online articles. For the best selection of vegetable, flower, and herb seeds available, go to stokeseeds.com. Catalogs are still available. Stokes Seeds, cultivating successful growers for generations.